tries to push us away from it because so very much in their life. And this is also true for myself. I'll have to look this up. Mechanism, or humans also have mirror neurons, and they are fundamental to what it means to be human. Neuroscience shows that mirror neurons impact our ability to grasp new skills, acquire knowledge, then maybe we wouldn't survive. But I think what we need to unlearn is like, how do we... Neuroscience shows that mirror neurons impact our ability to grasp new skills, acquire knowledge, and form deep emotional connections with those around us, even helping us understand why people do what they do. So this is a great example of how neuroscience shows us how self-love is connected to the people around us, right? Mirror neurons are looking at somebody and mirroring what they're doing, whether it be their facial expressions, whether it means their hand motions, those type.
Good morning. Hello. Good morning. So what do mirror neurons tell us about self-love? So we've already kind of touched on what mirror neurons tell us about ourselves and the people around us. But let's see how mirror neurons help our brain to make a sense of self. So I'm just looking this up here. There's one that says on the role of mirror neurons in the sense of self. So let's see about this one. Let's see. So I will link this to my podcast at the end. It looks like until recently, the phenomenon of self has been the subject of inquiry for philosophers and psychologists, as well as spiritual traditions. However, with the increasing availability of functional brain imaging and other techniques, this phenomenon has become an important topic of investigation in neuroscience. Thanks. I'm recording, but I don't know if this actually recorded. It did not. Fuck. Delete. I put it on. Can't believe I did that. Hello, this is Samantha. Test, test, test. I'm having command that. Gross.
Hello, this is Samantha. Test, test, test.
So how do mirror neurons help us understand self-love in a more, I guess, in a deeper way? So I have an article here from researchgate.net, which I will link to this podcast. But what the author says is, until recently, the phenomenon of the self has been the subject of inquiry for philosophers and psychologists, as well as spiritual traditions. However, with the increasing availability of functional brain imaging and other techniques, This phenomenon has become an important topic of investigation in neuroscience. So these researchers found that there are two brain systems involved in the representation of self. The first is in the mirror neuron system, or MNS, that underlies the physical or embodied self, namely its face and its voice, which I find so interesting because our mirror neuron system notices the face and voice and creates it into the embodied self, which is so interesting because that's how we see each other too. That's cool. These findings are in line with the philosophical and psychological literature on the self, which greatly and generally draws a distinction between two distinct but inseparable aspects of this phenomenon: the I self and the me self. The I self is the agent of experience, the thinker, which is what we experience every day, right? The me, the I self, the what am I thinking about? What am I doing? Who am I? What is my mental state? And then the me self is the object of experience, or the thoughts. So you're aware that you're thinking and that you're a person. These two aspects are also highlighted by this researcher, who distinguishes between what he refers to as the machinery of self and the mental state of the idea of me. So this gets into like some really philosophical things, and I don't know if I really want to get into that in this podcast, but what I'm understanding is that the mirror neuron system, it helps us to distinguish and differentiate self, which then should help us to distinguish self from others, but also seeing each other in one another, which is really interesting. Oscar, no. It is dark. Good morning. I have a very dark, this like died again, which is annoying. Let's see if this worked. So how do mirror neurons help us understand self-love in a more, I guess, in a deeper way? So I have an article here from researchgate.net, which I will link to this podcast. But what the author says is, until recently, the phenomenon of the self